In 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Couch Surfing. This is Damien, host of Couch Surfing, and we have a very special guest today for the 10th episode of the Couch Surfing podcast. It is actually today is going to be Cheekz Productions. Cheekz Productions includes me, Renee, but Renee couldn't be here today. So it'll be just me, Damien, representing Cheekz Productions on the Cheekz Productions channel, on a Cheekz Productions podcast. But we're going to give you a little backstory on how Cheekz Productions started and what we look to do in the following months of having Cheekz Productions and the potential future of Cheekz Productions. So I wanted to give a shout out first to everyone who's been on Cheekz Productions, all the guests who's been on Cheekz Productions. A lot of these couch surfing wouldn't be what it is without you guys, and we wouldn't have a number of the viewers without you guys, considering that you guys, couch surfing has the highest views on the channel. I'd also like to give a big shout out to all the people who've come on across the room, which is going to be our most consistent podcast with our most consistent views. We're ranging around 30-40 for every podcast right now, which is great. At least we're seeing consistent numbers with that podcast. And then I want to give the biggest shout out to all the fans and all the people watching and all the subscribers who've subscribed. None of this would be possible without you. You're what keeps us going. You're what keeps us in the loop. You're what keeps us wanting more and wanting to bring better content and to bring and to make ourselves better at, in the content, talking and hosting and interviewing. So big shouts out to you guys. 55 subscribers, and we are at 1,200 views. And we really appreciate all the support. Thank you. Thank you for the friends and the family who have supported. What I really want to talk about, and then also to the team, Renee, like I said, couldn't be here, but he will be handling merch, and he is an across the room host, podcast host. Okay, and I really want to get started by saying how Cheekz Productions actually started. Very short story. It's actually happened a little over 3 to 4 months ago. That was how it really started. So, Cheekz Productions started by the name has always been the same, Cheekz, but Cheekz Productions was supposed to be Cheekz Podcast, which I feel was a very good name. I actually came up with the name. Came right to my head as soon as I heard Cheekz. As soon as I heard podcasts, my very thought was Cheekz. I started it with a friend, a very good friend of mine. Him and his cousin we were going to start a podcast called Cheekz. And I wanted to keep it very general, so that's why I named it Cheekz. There wasn't really anything to it other than maybe humor that was a part of it. No, Cheekz Productions doesn't mean ass cheeks or butt cheeks. It means it was supposed to be laughing cheeks, but just turned into a general production thing that I wanted to do. Basically, me and John were, me and my friend were trying to do a podcast. We developed it. We had just been talking one day, like everyone else, shooting the shit, joking, and like everyone else told each other, let's start a podcast. We both asked each other how serious we were. And I was super serious. He was super serious at the time. And he told his cousin. And we all got together and we all decided that we were going to do this podcast. We FaceTimed. We put some ideas down. We wanted to see where we can go with it. We wanted to see what can happen with it. We ended up calling it Cheekz. Basically, we all got together. A week later, we rented out a photo studio. I'm pretty sure they have footage of that night still of us getting together and doing stupid shit in a photo studio. which was really cool. It was a really good time. Didn't get a lot of content out of it. It was pretty funny, but it was pretty cool. It was a good time, all three of us. And then basically we started moving forward and seeing what else we can do with it. We kept trying to, record and whatnot, and it just didn't work out. People got lives, so they were moving on to other things. Shouts out both of them though for giving me the idea, and so I can actually trailblaze through and pioneer more with this idea. Appreciate them. Shouts out to them. Hopefully have them on the podcast soon. But basically, we all kind of fell out with the idea. So I decided to keep the Cheekz name going on, so I could create a YouTube channel called Cheekz Productions. Cheekz Productions was supposed to be a thing that I had where I didn't want to be tied down to one podcast. I didn't want to be tied down to one niche. I didn't want to be tied down to one thing that I was actually going to make us. I wanted it to be as general as possible. And the only way I could think of doing that was actually adding productions at the end of something. That way I can actually move around the channel as much as I want to, because I don't want to stop at just something funny or sports or, interviewing. I want to do more with this channel. I want to do a lot more. I want to be able to move around, and I want to be able to, explore the different creative sides that I have. As far as it is right now, it is podcasting, and talking, socializing basically. But eventually I want to get to something else with it. So that's why I started to put productions at the side on the channel, rather than just saying the Cheekz Podcast, because Cheekz Podcast would have been giving us only podcasting. We can only podcast on there. And now with the production side of it, we can actually start to maneuver throughout the different genres of art that we want to establish on this podcast. So basically, after that, I started the channel, started the email, I started everything. I did everything. My friend and co-host Renee from Across the Room podcast was actually, I saw one of his Instagram stories, and I had talked to me and Renee. We hung out like every now and then. We were really cool, really good friends growing up. You can hear about how we grew up together and how we know each other from the other Across the Room podcast, probably the first or second one. We grew up together, and basically what I did was I hit him up and I said, hey, let's link up, let's do a podcast, let's do something together, maybe collab or something, because he was in the works of doing trying to make his own podcast, and he had a brand that was coming out, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, so basically he had a brand that was coming out to actually promote his podcast and promote the brand he was doing. So I asked him, I went to the barbershop he was at, and he was all for, he said, hey, you can come do it here and we can practice, basically. So I drove all the way to, I believe it's South Omani. I'm not too sure exactly where this place was. So I drove all the way down there. 7 o'clock at night, just looking to start this thing, big dreams, obviously. So we had actually went to the studio, which was basically a small room in the back of a barbershop. It's actually his cousin's barbershop. Shouts out to his cousin for actually letting us use those times to visit. Really appreciate it. Basically, we did the podcast there. We did 3. Didn't really like any of them. All of them were kind of like whatever. Finally did one, and it was our best one, and it actually went very well. The banter was great. The stories were great. Unfortunately, that was supposed to be the first episode of couch surfing, but unfortunately, we couldn't get to that point yet of putting it out, because essentially I had lost all the audio that was on it, so there was nothing to sync. It would just sounded super far away. So I decided, like, okay, we're gonna hold off on the next episode. He was actually, shouts out, Renee was letting me use his computer at the time to actually figure all this stuff out. So basically, moving on, we we decided, we figured that I actually had to move, so I took a small break, and I moved from Westminster actually to Costa Mesa, and it was great. It was a great move. Had to take about 2 week break off, but told him, hey, let's record, and he said okay. I guess he actually works in Costa Mesa, so it kind of worked out for both of us. I figured that we'd stay together, because his schedule just worked perfectly with mine. We were both off, later in the day, and we were actually able to, record something, which was nice. It kind of worked itself out. You get a lot of things that where it's like, maybe are you meant to be here? Or are you meant to do these things? But I think, looking at things now and seeing how things have led to this, where I'm at now, and while creating this channel, I think it kind of like worked out for a lot of things. Actually, the spot I'm moving at right now is actually closer to my work. It's actually closer to Renee's job, which kind of worked itself out because now he didn't have to travel too far to actually do the podcast. And it also, it's a nice area, really grateful to be here. Grateful to be here in Costa Mesa. Worked itself out. And it was able to actually record all these podcasts and get them down and basically practice over the first couple times. So basically we recorded, going back to it, we recorded the first episode of Couch Surfing actually in my room, Cheekz Productions Studios, which was great. Honestly, it was a great session. It was our first session that we actually had that we put out, but the banter was great back and forth. Topics didn't really have a lot of substance. They had substance to it, but maybe should have came in there with some better topics. We just talked about the things that were going on at the time, and I guess it wasn't really something a little more political, which we're kind of trying to stay away from here. But very good episode. Very glad he was the first guest. And he's going to be a guest again, where we're actually talking about his life too. I guess I was a little anxious about putting that one out, so I just threw it out there. And basically that's... and so it just happened. Well, basically we just put it out there and got a lot of good feedback. The video is doing very well now. It's 160 views. Our highest views so far on a video. And it's great, I appreciate all the support on that one for sure. Everyone who believed. But moving on, we figured that we had practiced enough together, and we had, a good rapport on our talking and our conversating. So, basically what we did was we decided that, hey, why don't we just start a podcast together? So we started Across the Room, which shouts out to whoever created the name. I don't know if it was me or you, Renee, but that sick ass name. Shouts out to us for that one. Basically, decided to start our own channel, our own podcast on the channel, and which was really kind of in line with what I wanted to do with the channel, where I have multiple sources of media projects to actually put out. And couch surfing being the interview style type of podcast, and then we had Across the Room, which is banter, basically topics we felt, what we wanted to talk about, our weekly, what we did during the week, basically taking you guys into our lives a little bit more, and telling us, giving our perspective of how we feel about certain things in the world. It's a great podcast. Go stream that podcast. Like, subscribe, comment too to Cheekz Productions. There's a little plug. Midway through, we're about 15 minutes in. What else did I want to talk about? Where are we going from there? And then from then on, it kind of just blossomed to something great. We had multiple guests on Couchsurfing. Actually, this is the 10th episode, so there have been exactly 9 guests, including me being the 10th, but I don't know if I'd really count this because I am the host of that show. So I guess 10 special guests we had on that show, or on that interview, including me being the 10th. We also had 10 episodes, just filmed the 10th episode of Across the Room. That's going to be our first recorded video on the Cheekz Productions channel. Shouts out to the people who let us rent the studio. It was great. It was a good time. And you guys will get like a more in-depth view when we actually put out the film of like what it looks like and where we're at and how we're doing it. Which was kind of funny too, because getting that studio, I looked at it, it was a little small, but I was like, hey, I wonder what we can do with this. And there was actually nudity allowed. No nudity in the video, guys, but a nudity allowed there. So I have no idea if I touched something that was supposed to be there or not. And, they let us drink too. So I guess, it was very liberal there. It wasn't very very open. They were very open to many things that could go on there. So moving on from that, all these guests that we've had, I just want to give a big shout out to all of them too. A big shout out to let me just go down the list. So this is all the couch surfing guests. Big shouts out to Renee, obviously the first one on there. Shouts out to Gary. Gary decided he wanted to be the second guest. We were actually supposed to start a sports podcast, which is in the works right now, but unfortunately we only had time for couch surfing, so we got couch surfing down. One of the funniest dudes I know. Hilarious. Shouts out Gary. Shouts out his wife too for actually allowing him to be on the podcast. And letting us do it at his house, which was pretty fun. I had a great time, and thank you for letting me into your home. Third episode, Tony and Beverly. Great episode. Always nice to hear about, someone doing something, great with their life, where he was actually DJing at EDC, which was cool, because, like, if you've ever seen Tony, he doesn't look like the type to go DJ or go, out and go crazy. But, man, what a story he had, considering that he didn't have the look, but, he had the art, the creativeness, and the artistic mind to actually get out there and make some music that everyone loved, and was actually on a couple playlists by a couple big EDM artists. So big shouts out to Tony. Big shouts out to Beverly for remembering half the stories. Beverly did a great job for her first time being on mic. Shouts out to them. Great couple. I appreciate both of them for coming on. Really meant a lot. And thank you for being the third guest on Couchsurfing. David and Miguel. That was the 4th episode. Great episode. Super fun. One of my favorites. Very hospitable. Very nice guys. They're fucking hilarious. Both of them too. They're brothers. But they definitely are. That was definitely one of my favorite episodes for sure. I think I felt that was one of the most comfortable episodes I've had. Where comfortable with the banter and talking between everyone. So shouts out to them for making me comfortable and bringing me into their home. I really appreciate that. 4th episode is actually John, Big John, security guard. John was a corrections officer, Marine. Well, Marine first, corrections officer after. Great story, man. Just the things he's seen, just what he's been around, just the knowledge that he has. He's kind of done a lot in this life, and it's always cool to see the where people go when they do that stuff. And the corrections officer thing really fascinated me the most, because I do watch the prison shows like 60 Days In or Locked Up Abroad, which was a crazy one, or Locked Out or something like that. All those National Geographic documentary series. And I just really appreciate him for coming on and giving us a slice of his experience when dealing with criminals or people who have criminals, which, we shouldn't sit here and tell them that they're nothing, considering that some of them are probably smarter than we all are. Just using it for the wrong reasons. And thanks for coming on and showing us what it really means to be a corrections officer and then a Marine. Thanks a lot, John. Much appreciated. Going on to our fifth episode. Fifth episode was a special episode, and I really appreciate the people who had gone on it. To Feel, which consisted of Josh Solo and Kalos, both fantastic artists. They actually featured a few new songs that they're going to come out with on my on the podcast. Go and take a listen. Really appreciate their them coming on and basically saying and basically just telling us how their relationship and then their plans for the future in the whole music industry. I really appreciate this coming on and telling us their story. A very heartfelt story coming from both of them, how they grew up together and the relationship that they have now. Big shouts out to them for sure. And they have the second most views on the channel. Are much appreciated, and thank you so much for coming on. Sixth episode, Lawrence. Big shouts out to Lawrence. Lawrence, he did his thing. Very, very interesting man. Glad he came on. His brushes with death, consistently, and then living in Mexico to practice medicine was just very, different view that we had on life, and very warming too view, considering a lot of the negative things that are going on right now and the negative, way people are going about things. It was nice to get a fresh perspective from someone who's actually been around death and, really likes to take advantage of life he has right now. Also being someone who was a workaholic too, he, developed this maybe appreciation for life in general. And I really want to give a big shout out to Lawrence for that. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story with all of us. We really appreciate it. Also want to give a big shout out to Brennan. Brennan was a former drug addict. Very nice guy. Much appreciate you for letting me in your house also. And telling us your story, basically, opening up like that, especially about some past stuff, which you actually persevered through and came back from. Really appreciate that part of your life, and about, and then kind of model about what you kind of model a way to live your life. I don't like that. Model a. Thank you for the perspective you gave on coming back from such a dark place, man. Like, that's insane. And it's really hard it's really hard to say you can't do something when someone like Brennan had nothing. He was nothing. He probably felt like nothing and probably felt like he didn't want to live anymore. And he actually came back, and is doing the best right now. He's a lead at a store working in cannabis, which is something he's wanted to do and something he appreciates, which, you can appreciate a story like that because, we all go through some stuff sometimes, and it's all about how we come back from it. So thanks to Brendan for that. Really a true story of perseverance. Also to Justin, too. he was in foster care, which is we all know that can be a very hard system, and we all heard the horror stories that come out of that. But got through there. He, saw how much he actually probably appreciates it now, showing him what he's learned from it. Because that's all you can do. You can only learn from these situations. Getting in a bad situation and getting out of it, and same difference. Just a bad situation, and then coming out and triumphing over such a bad thing that happened. Shouts out to him too for also opening up. We really appreciate you, all these people opening up and opening us up to your homes. And then I want to give a big shout out to the guests who are on across the room. Really appreciate Abraham. Abraham has not only been a guest, but he is also the one who created the new logo that we're actually putting on T-shirts and stuff like that. Really big shouts out to him. We wouldn't really be here trying to make shirts right now if it wasn't for him. So big shouts out to Abraham. We're gonna get you on the podcast soon again. Really appreciate it. You coming in and doing taking time out of your day and taking money out of your taking your own money and making a shirt for us, all for believing in the what we got going on here. And that's all we can ask for is everyone to just believe in us and support as much as possible. Wow. And then now we're at the 10th guest, which is me, who is just trying to tell you guys how much I appreciate and support you guys, the guests that came on. We also have like I said, the first video recording coming on next Tuesday. But what I want to say is this big shout out to our guest Albert, who is going to be on it. He came in last minute, last hour. What a great guy, honestly. He was an hour away, zoomed over to do the podcast because our last guests, didn't really want to be on. Well, not that he canceled. Not that he didn't want to be on. He canceled. He was busy doing what he had to do. And I really appreciate Albert for coming on and covering for our last minute guest. I just really want to say thank you to him. Also want to say, and there's just a big shout out to the brand right now and the channel that we're actually trying to create and, see how far its potential can reach. Also, too, I want to talk about the future of couch surfing. The Cheekz Productions channel. Couch surfing is actually going to be something that I'm going to withhold only to one episode per month. I always find it's a very interesting topic, but it is a little overwhelming with all the editing, and not only the editing, but it is with the time that I have and the money. I just think right now we have to withhold that for maybe once every month, which I plan to do. But moving on from that, we are starting a couple new podcasts. Oh, well, at least one new podcast. Cheekz Cast is in the works, which is basically Cheekz Productions podcast. That's in the works. Also, we have a sports podcast coming up. That's going to be hit on Tuesday, and that's actually going to be our new Thursday upload. So that'll be uploaded every Thursday. Just sports, strictly sports, which is something that's a passion of mine. Other than the production here and the podcasting, I believe that this is something that I would really love to talk about and something I live to give my opinion on. And it's I appreciate if you guys would go and like that and follow that. Like I said, couch surfing's not done. It's just put on hold. Maybe once a month, possibly. And if I could do it more, I will. But just at this time, I think we're going to withhold that for a bit, and until I get more time and more money to actually do the couch surfing. What else we got going on here? So I don't know if I gave a reason. Oh, I did give the reason for why I started Cheekz. So we will be dropping merch soon. Also, that's in the works. Renee's doing his magic and trying to get some people to print some T-shirts, and we're gonna get some. The guests of Across the Room will actually get a T-shirt. Because that is an every other week thing. I believe that those people will get T-shirts. So if you want to be featured on the Across the Room podcast, you will actually get a T-shirt. But that's the merch that's dropping. And I just want to grow a consistent brand too. I want to make sure that this specific channel has consistency and is uploaded when you guys see it and when I tell you it'd be uploaded. We have been lagging on the shirts a little. Like I said, we didn't realize how much time and money it took, so we're basically going to hold off on that. So now we are moving on to actually getting that done. And I will give you guys an ETA when we will have it. We're thinking 1 to 2 weeks, but if not, that's an estimated time. But we will get those shirts to you guys. Also, too, anybody else who want to be featured on the podcast, just let me know. I really want to get more people on, more guests. We do have a room that you would have to come to, or potentially a studio, depending on which podcast it is. So just hit me up. Let me know what kind, let me know if you guys want to be on. You'll get a free T-shirt if you're on Across the Room, and or drop a comment and tell me about some topics that you guys are looking to hear about or whatnot. This is my first solo podcast. Thinking about doing more. It's a little tougher than actually bantering off someone, but it's a work in progress, and I'm learning still. I'm still learning. I'm always learning. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for hearing about how Cheekz Productions started, where it's going, and the future of it, and the potential that we do have. I really appreciate everyone on this podcast, the guests, the fans, the views, the subscribers. I appreciate all of that, and this wouldn't be happening without all our views. And so thank you for everything, and I hope everyone has a good day. This is Damien from Cheekz Productions signing off.